this town for the both of us, Injun. Now, stick 'em up!
You're no match for my years of land knowledge. I have this place surrounded.
Stop fighting! Can't we all just get along?
Who's that?
Introducing the new half-breed Metis action figure. Comes with a multi-use sash for use as belt, towel, and even a sewing kit.
Cool!
He even comes with the Red River cart for bison hunting. Hop in! Let's go hunting!
Half-breed Metis action figure, new from Canada. Cowboys and Indians sold separately.
Hello, my name is Samantha Loney, and welcome to the Traveling Métis podcast, the podcast designed to explore Métis culture. This is the third episode in the series, so if you are completely lost as to who Métis people are, or are interested in the fur trade, please check out the first two episodes in the series. But if you missed it, don't worry. You clicked on a great episode dedicated to Métis art. We have Métis artisan Kim Walden returning, along with the amazing artist and activist Christi Belcourt on the show, and a few special guests to discuss the opening sketch. I want to dive into the opening sketch. Some of you may have found it funny. Some of you may have even been hurt by the sketch. Some of you have no idea what the heck that was about. Let me give you a little context. Métis people have many nicknames. As we learned in episode 2, we are sometimes referred to as children of the fur trade. Today, we'll learn more about why the Cree gave us the nickname the flower beadwork people. But first, an awkward conversation. My father lovingly refers to me as his white squaw because I'm a pasty-skinned native woman. But that's something for us to work out in therapy. Today, I wanted to discuss an often derogatory term used to describe Métis people, half-breed. You've already learned that Métis people originated from two different cultures. And long, long ago, in a galaxy not so far away, in the land of John A. MacDonald and his forefathers, Métis people were called half-breeds. Not just a fun nickname thrown around the schoolyard by your 5th grade bully, but written on our birth certificates. I wanted to ask a few modern Métis people how they feel about the term and what it means to them.
It certainly meant something different in my youth. I identified with this song by Cher called Half Breed. Now I know that's sort of a bad term and it's not the way I identify. I just think I was young and stupid and I thought that I was from these two different worlds. Now I know it's a misrepresentation, but I do think that it's important for me to realize that I do come from two different cultures and like this flag above my head, it's like a link in a chain and it shows the connection between cultures as opposed to collision of culture.
You can see how it can make people offended, but then you can also take that and kind of take it on a positive note, like, yeah, like I'm half of each, so you kind of get the best of both worlds.
Thanks, Hannah Montana.
I actually love the term for myself. I'd be pissed off if someone who's not Métis said it. In any context, you know, my grandpa's birth certificate says half-breed on it. Like, this is a word that has been used from every community to make Métis people seem like we're subhuman, that we weren't even considered to be worthy enough to be like turned into quote unquote the white man. We were just considered to be like the dogs, you know?
I think it was so normal back then, you know, half breed, cross breed, the different French breed and whatnot. Even with the painting the infinity symbol on babies that were born in hospitals to identify whether they were Anglo-Métis or Francophone Métis. And it's just seen as such a normal thing, you know?
It was a huge identifier and like part of our identity. So I think coming from that way, I totally understand it and totally respect it. When it's used in a derogatory way, that I can't get with. It's kind of that way that I feel like other Métis people can use to identify themselves and identify each other and kind of claim that heritage. But when other people are speaking it to us, sometimes it can have that like negative connotation to it.
Being a half-breed is a contentious topic no matter who you discuss it with. I was at an event with my Métis Council where our president, Roxanne Shank, put it beautifully. She said, "We are not half anything. We are one unique culture." And I can think of no better way to celebrate culture than to talk about its art. I think art is a really great way to learn about who a group of people are. Art is universal. We create it every day through the words that we speak or write down, the food we cook and eat, and things we craft with our very own hands. For Indigenous people, art is just who we are. I thought a great person to begin this conversation with was our very own Métis artisan, Kim Walden. You may remember Kim from the last episode where we talked about the fur trade and Métis people in business.
Being a Métis artisan for me has helped me with my healing. It's helped me with my personal journey. And the other blessing I have is that it's actually making me some pretty good money. I mean, it's pretty cool to be recognized, across Canada and particularly in the province of Saskatchewan as someone who can provide a quality piece of work. That's quite an honor.
As you heard from Kim, art can be healing. I wanted to continue our conversation without capitalism and business getting in the way. How do you define Métis art?
I'll just tell it in the way that I know how, which is through a story. So I was taught traditional cultural arts and crafts at a very young age. And then, of course, you become a teenager and there's so many other things that become more important. And I fell away from that. Then what happened was in 2013, I lost my youngest brother to suicide. And it hit me in a way that for those who have had lots of trauma in their lives, they know exactly what I'm talking about. And I always say it's like you're trying to learn how to breathe again because the trauma is so deep. So what I had decided to do was I was going to start beading again. And I was going to start making things because it was a good way for me to heal and to grieve and to process the extreme trauma that I had been through. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is because I believe that our art is a way for us to heal our communities. I believe that for us that are the Métis artisans in the community, we are the keepers of that tradition. We are the keepers of those informal sharing circles. So I'll give you an example. I just did a moccasin making workshop at a First Nations organization this past weekend. And what I love about it is you get, 5 women who don't know each other from Adam. And we're sharing things as we're beading because you immediately have this level of comfort that because you're beading and so it takes away from the maybe I shouldn't share about myself, maybe I shouldn't say that, because you're being distracted, right? So I think for us who express ourselves through our art and using the traditional materials, it is a way for us to show our community and the non-Indigenous community how resilient we are and how we can heal ourselves through our art. My beadwork has been such a learning process. I've learned so much from other beaders. It's so cool that somebody can look at my beadwork and you're from the Prince Albert area, and this design is from this is a Dene design, this is an Ojibwe design. Like it's so neat that we can put our personal touches and our style into what we do. And then of course modernizing our artwork as well. If you ever get a chance, go on Facebook and check out all these wonderful people who are making beaded pop sockets. I didn't know what a pop socket was, until my son showed me. And now we have beaded pop sockets, and we have ribbon skirts that are being worn to at work, right? We're bringing them into corporations, and we're wearing our art proudly, and we're saying, hey, this is part of who we are.
Indigenous art, like, it's really hard to define nowadays because people are doing so much.
That's right. I mean, so we have such a broad spectrum. So we have the traditional, let's say, me doing a moccasin making workshop. And then on the opposite spectrum, we have Indigenous and Métis designers who are showing their stuff at the New York or the Paris fashion show. And I love that. I just love that we are breaking through systemic barriers, and it's through our art. It's through our craft. And, another example is, the beaded poppy. That's just how we show our respect and how we honor the people that we love.
Has being a Métis artisan helped you connect to your community?
Last February of 2022, I was the first ever auntie in residence of the Musqueam Innovation and Entrepreneurship Program with a university here in Saskatchewan. And it was really cool that we honor our elders, of course. We honor our aunties and uncles as part of our Indigenous culture. But to be an official auntie was pretty cool, like I even have like the little name tag and everything. And the biggest takeaway for me was I was given an opportunity to learn things about that part of my culture that I wouldn't necessarily have had I not taken that position. So for example, we smudged every Monday. We had a sharing circle. We had 2 feasts, like those types of things that, I wouldn't necessarily have connected with had I not been a part of that program. So I'm very, very fortunate that I got to do that. Just to give you a little bit of background about who I am, I grew up with some very strong cultural components and some amazing role models in my family, but I never knew that there was a certain way for us to identify. I never knew that it was quote unquote Métis. So what ended up happening was I started university in 1994, and I majored in Indigenous studies. And the classes I was taking, it was like, well, my grandma does that, and my great grandpa used to do that. And all of a sudden I had this connection to my culture that I had never experienced before. For a good majority of my youth and my adult life, I always felt like I didn't belong. There was, I am an older person, and there was a stigma to self-identifying as an Indigenous individual. Indigenous people did not have the same privileges that non-Indigenous people had in, the 60s and 70s. So we were always told growing up that you should not identify. So then what ended up happening was, through my journey, right from, the start of university to where I am now, I have been so blessed with pinnacle people and amazing initiatives that I've been able to connect with to assist me in becoming stronger in my cultural background. So I'm very, very fortunate, because I think there's a lot of individuals that perhaps self-identify as Métis, but maybe don't have that connection to their culture that they would like to have, right? And of course, a lot of us, we talk about, we talk about that imposter syndrome. Well, for me as a Métis individual, so is it okay that I go to a feast? Is it okay that I go to a powwow? And not wanting to be perceived as an imposter, for trying to connect with a part of my life that I hadn't been privy to historically.
I think a lot of people can relate to that.
I remember, being in junior high and telling people, well, I was French. That's why I get, a little better tan than most people in the summertime, and, like it was just, that's what we were taught. And now I also like talking about my oldest son, who is a very fair-skinned person. He has blonde hair and blue eyes, and he gets very frustrated because he identifies as a Métis individual. He is, he is a member of the Métis Nation of Saskatchewan. He has the bloodline, the lineage, but people automatically perceive him right in a certain way, and he gets really frustrated with that. And so, we still have some bridges to build. We still have some things that we need to do. But I think the first part is to help each other connect.
Oh, yeah, it's true. You have to, build up your own community, and then you can start to help other communities as well.
There's a saying that says, if you know from where you came from, there's no limit to where you can go. And I believe that. I think the hardest part for me as a person of Métis heritage is always feeling like I didn't belong. It didn't matter whether it was in the professional realm or in the personal realm. I always felt like I never belonged. And then, like I said, you get to, university, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I actually have, I have this cool community that I didn't even know I was connected to, and just how empowering and how it helped me build my confidence in who I am.
That was such a great conversation I got to have with Kim. It just goes to show how art and mental health are so mixed in together, and how you can really help find your identity and self through creativity. Art helps us to communicate our ideas to the world in a digestible way, to make change in our community. That's why I thought there would be no one better to sit down with than Christi Belcourt. I am a huge fan of Christi, not only of her art, but just in general as an amazing human being and a fellow Métis woman. For those of you who need an introduction, Christi Belcourt is a Métis artist, author, and activist. Originally born in Ontario, her Métis roots lie in Lac St. Anne. Her art is beautiful. We'll leave a link in the show notes to her website, and you can check it out. Her work focuses primarily on the roots and connection that humans have with nature and the land, specifically Indigenous peoples' identity and sovereignty. She also pioneered beadwork art, which is a beautiful way for people to show their appreciation for beadwork by painting in dots, mimicking that beadwork. I knew if I was going to understand Métis art, I had to speak to her. How do you personally define Métis art?
Just simply as art that is done by a Métis person. When I think about what art is in our languages, that's an important indicator of the roots of where we need to look for answers to that question. And there is actually no word for art in the language. But yet we were artistic people, and we are artistic people, and we're creating things all the time. So why wouldn't there be a word specifically for art in the language, or that concept of art as being its own thing? Was what I've heard people say, it's because art was part of every day. So it just naturally was the things that we did and we do. So art is more than visual arts. So the description of us as flower beadwork people is a very nice description. I like that very much. I like that the description of us like that. It feels good, But the problem is that's also very limited when we just think of ourselves as being somehow frozen in the past to only have done flower beadwork. I mean, we're missing the all of the other arts in that. So all of the other arts are, of course, our storytelling, how we shared about our laws and our rules, and how we learned to govern ourselves according to the laws of the earth. song, through stories, through our creation stories. And those stories gave way to imagination. It would help a person not only know how to live, but how to imagine things, how to see things in their mind's eye, and then depict those things in various forms. So we have to look at the whole wide variety of art that makes us rich societies.
Looking at your work in particular, like I think anyone could see like how your culture and heritage sort of like plays into the art just by looking at it. But for you yourself as the artist, like how do you feel that your Métis heritage and the culture play into how you're creating like just visually what you're making?
Oh yeah, it's the very foundation of my art. If I wasn't Métis, I'm not sure I would see the world in the same way. So that comes out in the art, is the worldview, that everything is interconnected, that we hold responsibility, not just rights, and that our foundation of our laws and our languages and everything is in the land. All of that is there in the art. If you can relate to it and want to see it, you'll see it there. It's more than just the beadwork. The beadwork is there, but it's not just beadwork, it's quill work and embroidery and all the other things. But we had to bead on something, we had to quill on something. And a lot of that was on hide. And so my friend Milana Keiko says that hide tanning is a foundational art. And so we have to think about the skill, just the stamina that it takes to make hides in order to have something to bead on in the first place. And as Maria Campbell always talks about, she always talks about our protocols. So we have traditional copyright. That's not a copyright form that we sign. That's where we say the origins of our stuff comes from. So if you have a story, you have to start it by saying who gave you that story, where did you get it, how did you come by it. That's traditional protocol. That's copyright, I guess, for lack of a better word. So when I think about my art comes from somewhere. I'm not copying patterns necessarily. Like sometimes I will, but I'll say that I did, like I'll say, oh, that particular flower came from this piece that I saw, an old piece. And unfortunately, not a lot of the names were recorded for who made that piece. So, but for my own patterns, I recognize that the tradition of our art, the tradition of our foundational arts, the artistic legacy that was left to us by our ancestors, is the foundation of my work, and that's where it comes from. And in that, I have a responsibility to talk about it. I have a responsibility to give credit to our ancestors, to all of those grandmothers and people who made those beautiful works of art that give us such richness today. I have a responsibility to make sure that I pass along the message of traditional protocol, to talk about what Maria Campbell has taught me about that, so that I'm not just keeping it for myself, but I'm passing that along.
I was wondering too, what other influences play sort of a role, or what like inspires you?
My love for the earth, for our mother, the earth. I'm so in love and in awe with everything in creation. I mean, sometimes I have no words for the beauty of even something like a bird feather. I just don't even understand how birds can fly. I don't understand why we're born into this marvelous, wonderful world. And we have a responsibility to protect spaces for them, their territories. We often talk about our territories, our rights, we're in this kind of this human to human competition, conflict all the time over our things, and we take possession of our spaces, but we never talk about their spaces. There are places that maybe humans should not go, like there's definitely sacred places that we shouldn't necessarily go to, or if we do, we approach in a very humble way. When we go there, we bring offerings or whatever we do, but there are places that are not our breeding grounds. They're not our territory. They're the caribou breeding grounds, or the salmon spawning grounds, or the sturgeon spawning grounds, or where there's places in the water and on the land that are not ours. And yet we don't protect them like that. We don't allow them the courtesy and respect for the life that they provide to this world. And that is what motivates me to continue to paint and do other things and speak and do whatever I'm doing, because I just have such a deep love and appreciation and respect for every living thing.
Are there any other avenues of art that you'd like to try?
I'd like to just experiment and fail at some stuff. Like if you don't fail at things, then you can't get better. You can't try things. Like, I'm good at the dots, and I'm good at the paintings I do because I've literally done millions upon millions upon millions of dots. I've done, how many hundreds of paintings, so you just can't help but become good at whatever it is that you're doing if you do it often enough. But I'm not good at oil painting. I'm not good at other things. And I'd like a chance to get good at some other stuff,
When someone says like a Métis artist, like you're probably the first name that comes to my mind. So I was wondering, when you first set out and started, obviously like you are Métis, so everything you're going to create is made by a Métis artist. But did you like intentionally set out, say like, I'm a Métis artist, I'm going to create these types of works, or is that something that was inevitable just because your family background? Like sometimes society can just put that label on you.
Yeah, it was definitely the latter, because I don't ever, like, nobody ever puts labels on their own selves, do they?
Yeah.
People ask you to describe yourself, and it's protocol for us to say where we come from, to say who our people are, where our community is from, and that I like, because that places us within the larger circle of other indigenous nations and indigenous nationhood and relationships between our relatives within different communities. So I like the idea that I do like saying where I'm from, which is my community is the roots of my community is in Lac St. Anne in Alberta. The original name was Manitou-Zakiah, and my grandparents, my dad is Métis from there. He was born and raised there. My mom is non-native. And I like to say that this is where I'm from because it's important that people understand when I say I'm from there and that my grandparents spoke Cree, that we're talking about Cree-based culture, Cree-based thinking, but Métis culture, Métis thinking, but it's in a Métis community, but this is the language which they spoke. So it's important for me to place myself in that way so that people understand who my relatives are. And it allows me to meet other relatives, because then people are like, hey, I know so-and-so, or hey, do you know this person or that person? And, slowly you kind of discover who you're related to. And that can be like really fun. And for me, who was raised in Ontario, it can be like extra special for me to meet relatives.
For your daughter, as someone who's like tried beading and is not the greatest at it, I think dot art is a great way to show like your appreciation for that and design something that may be a bit easier on the fingers because you're not stabbing yourself with a needle.
I think beadwork is a great thing to do and to try and dive into, because then you really understand what's happening with the floral work that's done in dots. But I don't call it dot art. I actually don't like that. It doesn't feel, I prefer like, well, I don't call it anything, but if I must call it something, then I suppose I would rather it be called beadwork art than dot art. I just find dot art is like almost like hobby-ish, it really reflect all of the things that we were just talking about, which is these deeper meanings and connection to land and tradition.
We're here on the banks of the river, on the roots of the fur trade to catch Métis women in their natural habitats. No, not the kitchen, but doing beautiful hand-stitch embroidery and beadwork. Follow me through here quietly now. We want to approach carefully, and we do not want to disturb them. As you can see beyond these bushes, we have stumbled upon a group of Métis women. Oh, this is really a treat. The women have gathered while the men are out on the hunt. Here on the river, the women hold a great responsibility to carry the knowledge of the indigenous heritage forward through each generation. Oh, these knowledge keepers serve an important role in keeping their culture alive. Oh, look. This is just fantastic. If you see closely, you can see them hard at work on their beading and embroidery. The beads originally brought to them from Europe. The Métis have used them to design beautiful floral patterns that reflect the European heritage. Oh, the Cree have named them the flower beadwork people. This is really a treat. If it were night, they'd be doing this by moon and candlelight. The patience required them to bead their beautiful designs on clothing. Their voyager husbands could be on the hunt for weeks at a time. This gives the women plenty of time to create beautiful beaded and embroidered designs on the clothes of their men.
What was that?
Oh no.
Who's there? Smells like a man is near.
It looks like as if we've been spotted. We must proceed with caution. It has been weeks since these women have laid eyes on a man. Oh. Hello, ladies. I was just here observing your beautiful work.
It is a man. A strong man.
Get him!
Run!
Christi Belcourt is a pioneer in the artistic community, the first person to use dots in her paintings in the Métis context, creating beadwork art. For those unfamiliar, beadwork art is beautifully placed dots on a canvas, applied with a stick or other instruments rather than a brush. In the Métis context, this style of painting is used to reflect beadwork. I could explain the origin of Christi's work, but I thought I'd leave it up to the creator herself to tell you the legend of the beadwork painting.
What happened was two things happened at the same time when I started painting flowers. One was, well, first of all, I saw a pair of mucklucks like that my daughter's aunt had given me, that they were too big for me. So I sort of put them up on the wall, like as artwork on the wall. So I was just looking at them and I'm like, oh yeah, I should paint the flowers on them was my thought. Not paint the mucklucks, but paint the flowers. And right after that, I started painting them. And then I realized two really important things: that I was not a beadworker at the time myself. And I didn't know anything about plants to be able to paint them. And so my natural curiosity just took over, and I started, like, after that for years, every plant I came across, it didn't matter if it was in the city or if it was in the bush or if it was by a lake or in between a sidewalk, it didn't matter. Every single plant I came across, I had my nose in it, and I looked at the leaves, I looked how it grew, I wanted to see how the stems attached to it, I wanted to see the root system, I wanted to see what insects were on it, I wanted to see all these things. And at the same time, one of the elders, the late Wilfred Pelche, he was also, I guess, one of my first teachers, and he was saying everything is interconnected. And so this is what I started to notice with the insects working on the plants, how everything was interconnected and relied on each other to survive, and how we need them to survive. And then the other part of that was beadwork. And so the beadwork was something that I thought, well, I've grown up with beadwork around me, but I haven't done it myself. And I didn't feel it was necessary to do it to paint, but it was just a natural sort of like curiosity. And when I get curious about something, I do a deep dive into it. I go down the rabbit hole. I want to know everything about it. I want to know everything there is to know. And so I just go right deep into it, because my curiosity just keeps me going into it. I want to know more and more and more. And I don't know, just it's a thirst for knowledge, and I find it really fun to learn things. So I started doing some beadwork, and I didn't have anyone around at the time to teach me, so I had to teach myself how to do it based on just trial and error. And there was a lot of error, a lot of error. My beadwork looks so terrible, and now I can muddle through pretty well. And I've got you know, since then, of course, you meet people along the line who do beadwork, or you look at more and more. And so the study of beadwork and the study of plants coincided equally together at the same time. It was a trajectory that I was on, these two paths of study that were related to each other. And as I began to learn more and do more, and as I began to have my, and of course, because my interest was those things, they naturally made their way into my artwork. I think I painted my first sort of floral depiction of those mucklucks somewhere around 1992, maybe 1991. And then by a couple years later, I was into doing bigger paintings with floral works. And I think it was around the year 2000. I was adding dots to look like beadwork in the floral works. And then around 2000, maybe a little bit earlier than that, was the very first one that I did with just dots. I got rid of all the lines. And because it was like more and more dots were being added. And then I started doing less and less lines. And then as it just sort of naturally progressed to the point where I was like, well, let me try one with just dots then, without doing any lines, and see how that works. And then after that, it took off, because I just saw something in it. And the other thing is, I don't, you know, with each and every painting, I feel like it isn't quite, it's not that I don't feel it's complete. I don't feel it's as good as I can do. And so it pushes me to do another one. And because I don't feel like I achieved the best work that I've ever done yet. So I'm always being pushed. I push myself to, okay, you can do better. You can do this. You can do something better, you know? And so that keeps me going from one painting to the next. And you learn, you know, as a artist, you make so many mistakes that you learn from those, bring what you learned into your next one, and then your next one, and your next one, and your next one. And I suppose that's the same with anything, right? It's not just art.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, you have to put in 10,000 hours to get good at something. Do you think art is a good way to sort of link the past and the present, having a better understanding of those who came before us?
What I think about when I'm doing my art ranges because it depends on if I'm listening to something or not. So, for example, if I'm listening to a documentary or a podcast, there's all kinds of things going through, or an audiobook, you know, there's all kinds of things going through my mind. And then with music, it depends on what kind of music. Some music can be really, take me to a really deep place. So it tends to be more about feeling. And I think it's not really the art that's doing it, but it's more just me getting older. So as a person who is moving from middle age to older age, you know, I'm in that phase now, because I'm 56. So I'm definitely consider myself middle age, but I'm, you know, there's no stopping it, right? If we're all heading there, we're heading to an old age. And in this phase of my life, there's a lot of reflection and a lot of confidence that comes when you reach an older age. Your mind is super sharp, maybe even sharper than you've ever felt it be before. But your physical body is not. So you start to wonder, am I going to be able to do this forever? Can I move into my old age and still paint? What is my art going to look like if my eyes aren't good anymore? You know, and so there starts to be these sort of things where you're like, you feel like you're rushing a little bit against the clock. And that gives you a sense of passion, that you allow yourself to feel things just a little bit more deeply. You allow yourself to go into your feelings a little more, where you want to express your feelings. You know, it's not good enough for people to just look at my art and go, oh, that's pretty. You know, I'm hoping that people will feel something, because my love deepens like a love for a child, or love for a partner. Sometimes, you know, you think you've reached the maximum amount of love that you have, and then another year passes and you realize you loved even more. You know, you realize that there is no depth to the amount that it's not finite. It's infinite, the amount of love that you can feel. And so my love for life, my love for the earth, my love for everything that's here deepens with each passing year. And at the same time, I'm running into, like, my eyes aren't as good anymore. So I'm running into this issue of, am I going to be able to express this growing deepness of love and passion that I have for everything in an artistic way as I get older? And this is like the question that I have for myself. So, you know, these are the kinds of reflections, but I'm always in the moment reflecting, not really reflecting like after, I don't really think about what I did.
Yeah, like a big component of your art is the connection to the land and celebrating. And you just talked about all that love, and like you can definitely, like, when I look at your pieces, like I can definitely like feel that coming through. And even I was out for a walk the other day and I saw like a beaver that was like swimming by, and it had like a little piece of like wood in its mouth, and it, like, the water got too shallow, so it had to like sit up, and I was like sitting on a bench and it just like stopped right in front of me. So it's like, it's kind of like looking at one of your paintings too, right, where it's like, oh, I get to like sit and appreciate this beaver who's just like sitting here having like dinner.
Yeah, well, I really hope that that the love that people have for their own places, or those animals or birds or whatever it is, insects that they find that they like, that they feel particularly or specially attracted to, and they feel a connection with. That connection is not just in your mind. That connection is real. And so, what are the little spots along the rivers or the lakes that you like? And is that river or lake connected to a bigger body of water that is under threat? Is that species that you love so much under threat in the area in which you live? So to love something is good. That's the first step. But everybody loves somewhere. They love something somewhere. And they love animals, or they love something, that they love a certain kind of tree. Everyone has a favorite of some sort. And so I'm hoping that what that will do, what my art will do, the single purpose that I hope it does, is that it awakens that within a person that will then stand up to protect and speak out and do something about the areas in which they live. Because it's easy to go on social media and talk about saying that you love water. The difficult part is to stand up for the water in your local area, to not allow industry to encroach upon that water, because remembering that those territories are not always ours. That territory where you were in, that was probably the beavers' territory, you know, so you were a guest on their territory. And we start to see the world in that way. The rights of, when we're saying we have rights, we have rights, we have rights, we have rights. Well, what about the rights of the river, the rights of Mother Earth, the rights of that moose to have its own territory with which to raise its young without always being encroached upon? And if we can start to change our mindset, then maybe we can turn this around a little bit. But that's the biggest thing that I hope that will be the takeaway, and also that people will have a moment of respite when they look at my work, because this world appears to be so cruel. It appears to be so aggressive. and violent. It's not just in appearance, it is. And it's all humans that are like that. Humans are doing it. We're doing it to each other, we're doing it to the earth. And it can be very discouraging and overwhelming and make you feel like you want to give up, make you feel like, well, what's the point? Make you feel like, I'm just going to worry about me and my family. I'm not going to worry about anything else because I can't. I don't have the capacity because everything is so bloody violent and everybody's so freaking ornery and negative these days. Just like, honestly, everybody just has a bad thing to say about everyone else. Nobody has hardly anything good to say, And the way I was, if you don't have anything good to say about somebody, don't say anything at all. And I think that is a really good lesson to live by, to try and think about what does that mean when we talk about just when we're so willy-nilly, so easily able to just blurt, verbally vomit our negativity all over each other, without, appreciating that is contributing to the overall negativity that is going around the world. And if we want to see a better place, we have to act like it. So, this is the thing that I think about, that I hope that my paintings can offer just a moment for people to not only be motivated about the earth, but if they need just a moment just to see something beautiful, to be reminded that they are that, they are the earth, they are beautiful, that they are worthy of all the love and respect just for being born in this world as anyone else. That's really what I hope people get. I am very motivated by what's going on in the world, and I have not turned a blind eye to it in any way, shape, or form. And that's what motivates me. And I could depict what I see around me. I could depict some of these things that I think are very negative and harmful, and the suffering and things like that. I could, and I admire artists who do. But I feel like my purpose is different in that way. I just feel like I have a more, and I'm not saying any art has to have a purpose. It doesn't. It can just be purely for the creation of art. It does not have to have a purpose. But for me, I really feel this passion towards the earth and compassion towards everything and people. And I want them to know that they're loved, because there's just too much hate going on. So that's really what I hope with my paintings.
Although we've come a long way from being the flower beadwork people, I am still interested in that origin story. For me, as a Métis person, I am obsessed with discovering who my ancestors are, because I think there is so much they can teach me. As Métis people, a lot of our teachings involve sharing culture and working together. Our history is a tale of reciprocity, the means of two parties equally giving to each other, which is the lesson of today's episode of Métis on the Roof.
A Métis on the roof? Sounds crazy, no? But here at the Red River, you might say every one of us is a Métis on the roof, playing a balancing act, finding different ways to celebrate both our European and Indigenous roots, using art to showcase the territory of our Indigenous ancestors and communicate the ideas of the immigrant Europeans. Many came to know us as the flower beadwork people. And how did we get that name? That I can tell you in one word: tradition. Because of our traditions, we've kept our balance for many, many years. Here in the Red River, we have a tradition for everything. We have our sash, the Red River jig, we hunt and fish. For instance, we have an old tradition of beading and embroidering floral patterns on anything we can get our hands on. You may ask, how did this tradition get started? I don't know, but the legend says it starts with the arrival of 4 nuns.
Hold on to your rosaries, sisters. We're almost there.
Dear God, please allow us to arrive in one piece.
It's 1819. You think we come up with a gentler means of travel?
Come on, sisters. We're here to do God's work, not complain.
I see land.
Thanks, thee, Lord. Jesus, Mary, Joseph, it's freezing here. Where is everyone?
The Metis settlement is supposed to be on the banks of the Red River.
Someone is coming.
The Holy Spirit?
Our Savior.
Sisters?
Oui.
Please, follow us. We have a long way to travel.
This isn't the bank of the Red River.
No. We must climb steep slopes, make our way through bush, walk through ravines, and over dead trees.
In such treacherous weather.
I am so tired. I haven't had a good night's rest since we left.
Perhaps we should return to New France.
Sisters, I am embarrassed by you. We cannot go back. We have a duty to the Métis people. We have much to teach them.
Perhaps it is us who will be doing the teaching. Stay close to keep warm.
Any closer to that fire, sister, and you will be a part of it.
I still cannot feel my hands.
I will say a prayer for your fingers tonight.
The Métis people are so light-hearted and high-spirited.
Even among the cold. How does one stay this way?
My daughter and I brought you gifts to keep you warm. Here is some stew I have prepared.
Smells delicious.
Your people don't seem to be bothered by the cold.
This is our home. We have found many ways to keep warm.
Please, share with us.
We enjoy many creative activities. When you keep your hands busy, your fingers have no time to be cold.
Oui, Adele hands are devil hands.
Like these gloves. It took many hours by firelight to make them. Creativity is the Great Spirit's gift to us. When we allow ourselves to express our creativity, we release the Creator within us. Then we open ourselves to the Great Spirit of the universe.
You heard the woman. Get your hands busy, sisters. We shall make gifts from our land.
Yes, back in our land, where it is warm in the springtime, the beautiful bouquets of flowers.
I'll grab you some hide and thread.
The nuns continued to live among the Métis people along the Red River in true Métis fashion, sharing their knowledge and gifts equally among one another, proudly contributing their gifts to our unique Métis culture.
That's the end of our show, folks. I wanted to thank you for listening. Once again, I am your host, Samantha Loney. I want to thank our guests, Kim Walden and Christi Belcourt, for sharing their knowledge with us, and Etienne Beausoleil for providing the music in this episode. This episode was written and directed by Samantha Loney, edited by Cassidy Villebron-Baracus, and produced by the Métis and Me program with support from our sponsors, the Barrie South Simcoe Métis Council, along with the City of Barrie. See you on the road as the next episode of the Traveling Métis podcast continues on our artistic journey and we explore all things Métis music. See you down the river, and remember to like and subscribe.